Hello viewers, it's time for my weekly blog. I've been looking to put a weekly structure in place. We're getting there now. So blog today on a Wednesday, and then of course Friday we'll have our weekly news and stuff like that. Let's just talk a little bit very briefly this week. Obviously MXGP is coming out this week. We got our copy a few days ago, so we've been condensing all that sort of preview content into 1 week. I was hoping to have a video up every day, but it hasn't quite materialized that way. It does take time to edit these videos, especially when you want to do a bit more than just show some gameplay and some chat over it, and you actually want time to play it as well. So more MXGP is going to be coming in the next few days, and we've got a few more parts on that to answer many of your questions as well. So it had taken a bit of time, but thanks for your patience on all of that, and we'll try to answer some of your questions. Now, I've made this blog today because obviously we've seen the news now of Facebook taking or buying Oculus Rift. It's big news today. Viewers will know that I'm very keen on the Oculus Rift. I've been following it keenly for the last, since its development on Kickstarter really, and seeing how the technology has improved and the potential for VR that it's demonstrated. And the news came last night as a complete blow, surprising to everybody that Facebook had done this. I knew the internet would explode when I saw that news, and I knew it'd explode because it's a corporate company taking over something that was perceived to be small and independent and niche. And it's been interesting seeing the shockwaves, the people that are angry, the people that see Facebook as some big corporate monster, and how they've interpreted that. It's interesting to see what people's perception is of Facebook. I look at it and I've got a very different perspective on things, and I'm going to go through some things right now. If we take these shelves behind me here, I could have said Xbox and Sony and Microsoft were a disaster for the industry. We went from small games companies to big corporate giants, but they took the technology, they invested unlike ever before, and they moved the industry forward. Had Sony not come into developing the PlayStation, you wouldn't have the level of graphics that we have today. We'd be some way behind. We'd probably be at PS2 standard. And you say, why is that? Well, you need to look at each generation of technology. And with, if you go back to the mid-90s, Sega Saturn had a second SH2 chip put in it. So it ended up being double the power it's supposed to have been. So we would have had a 32X and a Saturn. That would have been it until 97 when we got the N64. There would have been nothing else in between. And the N64 would have dominated the market for so many years that there would have been nothing else to move things forward until Sega came out. Obviously, they moved forward their Dreamcast at the time because they were in trouble. But you wouldn't have seen the Dreamcast because technology wouldn't have been pushed. You need big corporate companies with big weight behind them to push it forward. Now, some people might say, oh, well, Sony make electronics. Yeah. Listen, in 1992, Sony made Walkmans and TVs. That was what they were known for. And they were going to produce a CD add-on for the Super Nintendo. And then they said, there was a disagreement, that deal collapsed, and then Sony said, we're going to go it alone. And a lot of companies said, big corporate company, great with technology, 20 billion profit behind them, so the massive company, they can make it happen, but I don't know, the games industry, it might be a step too far for them. They came out with Ridge Racer, blew everybody away, let the software do the talking, and then it worked so well with developers, it was so simple to use compared to their immediate rivals, that they had a great piece of kit. They aimed high with great technology and great development, and they took it from there. I think with Facebook, Mark has come in and he's made one of the biggest websites in the world. People see it as this data thing, that Facebook is a big monster. Listen, Facebook is the same as Amazon, it's the same as Google, it's the same as YouTube. Everything you do and see and speak about on YouTube is analysed. Everything you see and do on Facebook or Twitter or any website you go to. In fact, you may even find that the smaller sites are actually more unscrupulous than the bigger sites because they're analysed so heavily. The other thing as well is when money's injected into a project like Oculus, people often say, oh, look, it's Facebook, rah, rah. You think, well, who else would have invested? If the news story was Oculus generates $2 billion in funding, people would have said, fine. No one would have thought for a second where that 2 billion came from. You could just say banker guy you've never heard of, or random investment company no one's ever heard of. Everyone would be fine about it. This is how business works all the time. The fact that Facebook has put its name to it is a good thing. It means now that the technology will develop. It will maximize its potential beyond the initial hopes and dreams of the developers. They will take an evolution of this product and they will put it into the market, and it will do so much. Yes, it will do gaming. But gaming is a very small part of where Facebook see the future of VR going. It's a very small part where I see the future of VR going. And a lot of people don't see the steps of technology, what we've got ahead of us. I mean, I got this thing put on my Facebook wall here. You can see this here. The 10 megabyte computer system, only $5,995. 10 megabyte. Wow. Somebody saying there, Bill Gates said at the time that you would never need more than 256K of RAM. Absolutely. That was where the world was then. That was people's opinions. If you came out and you said something that was any different to that, no one would have liked it. Now, let's fast forward a bit. Let's fast forward to the 90s when, these games were out. There wasn't game shows. There was very small shows. We had a show called the Future Entertainment Show. But generally speaking, when you went to a technology show, there'd be a tent in the corner and it would say video games, and we'd all be in that tent. And we liked it. Because even though it was us, and we were the cool kids in the corner, not really, no, it was the anorak corner, but the point is that we felt we had a certain ownership of the industry. We felt quite involved in it. And then it became big and corporate, and now you have these massive multi-million-dollar games and productions. So everyone's kind of gone to indies, and they want to be supporting the indies. And Oculus was seen as an indie. It's just this indie thing. It's ours. We can control the development and all the rest of it. No, these things grow. They get bigger. But you've got to look at the plus side of what that growth can bring. If you take a look at Hollywood, for example, the big massive movies, the ones that make all the money, they make enough money so they can make losses on the indie movies. Same with some of the big games companies. It's the big games that make the money so that small games can be produced. And what I'm trying to say about all of this is that you can't have one without the other. You can't have masses of money coming in to develop an awesome VR product without altering your business structure along the way. And people don't know how much have gone into this, but I can assure you, if the Oculus Rift guys are as scrupulous as they've made out to be, then they will have analysed this deal and they will push through their goals for making great gaming VR. And I have no doubt that great gaming VR is on the way. I look forward to the next year, and I'm sure it will come out as normal. There'll be some great developments, but you have to remember, from Facebook's perspective, they're looking at 10, 20, 30 years in the future. It's quite funny. I had someone debating with me last night, someone 20 years younger than me, debating about, it will never come out now. It's the end. And it's not the end. It's not the end. This is the way business works. This is the way the finances behind it work. This will deliver it to more people. It's not going to be just some headset where you're just going to look at Facebook and a couple of farm animal games with some pigs wandering around. It's going to mean masses of investment, and that's what you need: cash, research and development. A bit like Google Glass, but more. And I think that in terms of corporate contracts and everything else, there's a lot that can come of Oculus in the future. So it's an amazing opportunity for them to develop great VR technology. And many of you watching this won't have used the current Oculus system, but I can tell you right now that it is an incredible experience. Some people will have suffered motion sickness, but I can tell you that's also down to the way it's been set up on occasion, on demos and everything else, and also the software hasn't been properly optimized for it, and also it's not the final unit. So you have to take all those things into account if you have tested it and had any kinds of problems. Look at myself with the triple screens. I first set them up, felt terrible. Set the screens up correctly, no problem, feel fine. It's getting that initial setup phase perfect to where you want it, and I think then the potential of VR will be unleashed for everybody, and I think it's going to change. I'm not going to say that playing VR for 12 hours a day is good for you. No, I think that limited sessions in a VR world is going to be all you should handle. But I do like the potential of the technology and where it's going, and I think this is overall it's a good move. You know, I remember when, as I say, Sony came in, people said, no, they're not going to do it. When Microsoft came to the business, people said, terrible. You know, I remember playing with a controller. Do you know, actually the Xbox One controller looked terrible, but it was actually really good for driving games, and I found it pretty good for shooting games as well. They brought in Xbox Live, which for me blew everything else away that either Sony or even Sega were developing. I mean, Sega came in, to be fair, the Dreamcast, and they were making progress. But Sony, you know, Xbox Live was structured, and I think they made a huge step forward with the 360. They made a big backward step on the Xbox One, but they have a market for themselves now, and they can build on it. And I think Facebook, depending on how they target this product and market this product, it will go to more countries than it would have gone to. It will have a much broader uptake, and certainly in terms of fighting against, say, Morpheus from Sony. You know, I've spoken to people that have used Morpheus and not so impressed. You know, people have asked me about Morpheus. So I say, what do you think of it? And I say, well, at the moment, I see it as limited by the PS4's technology. And the PS4's technology is current PC technology. In a year from now, when the Morpheus comes out, it will be last year's PC technology powering the Morpheus. But then it will be optimized, so it'll still be quite current. But the year after that, it won't be optimized and it won't be current. And it'll start to fall back a bit, and you'll start to see perhaps PS3 quality games or a bit above on the Morpheus in 3D. But certainly it's in virtual reality. But certainly it's an interesting development. It shows Sony take it seriously. But the console market at the moment is going through an interesting phase, isn't it? The consoles are selling really well, but yet I personally am not as impressed with the technology, and I think that there are going to be limitations when it comes to VR that the PC market won't have to such an extent with the way things are developing, especially with the new graphics cards improving at the rate they are every year. 5 years from now, 3 years from now, goodness knows what we're going to have available on the PC. Hopefully we'll be able to show you some of that at the time as well. But that was just a little chat about the Facebook deal with Oculus Rift. I, for one, think it's a positive step. I think there's plenty of other sources where the money could have come from that you wouldn't know about, that would have a lot more corporate control, that could do it because they're not in a public eye. They could do whatever the hell they wanted to it. At least Facebook, you know who they are, you know, and there's a lot to be said for that. People knew who was invested in who owned who. And when you see all these big companies out there, you think you know who owns Nintendo or whoever. We don't really know. You know, we can guess. We can say, well, that's owned by shareholders. Who are the shareholders? What do they own? How many companies? I remember Matsushita in Japan owning something like half the Japanese companies that we know of. It's amazing when you move up to the top of the food chain just how many companies are owned by the same people under different names. So it's interesting. There's something for you guys to have a think about. But gaming technology, I think it's a big step there. So this was mainly just a blog about that. I just wanted to get some information across to you guys, get a different perspective, you know, on this, you know, while in this game cave of stuff that's come and gone by in past eras, an idea of change, and this industry does need to change. But I always say, look at it. This is about video gaming becoming truly mass market, and every year it grows and expands in so many ways. And there's nothing better than having great endorsement like this. The only thing we're really missing right now is a TV show that's about video games, because we're still in 2014 and there's still no TV shows in the UK, at least, about video games that I'm aware of at the moment. That's a crying shame. It's something that needs to be sorted out, but we'll wait and see. But we have YouTube in the short term, but really I still also feel that there should be a program on TV about our passion, if you like. But that's been a blog today. So MXGP, more MXGP content to come in the next few days, besides lots of other stuff as well. The Q&A thread is finally up, by the way, and the link is finally below this video. Pop those questions into me and I'll answer some of them during my chat next week. But that's it from me for now. As ever, more soon.